Okay, today I found this. It's on CBN News. This was put up July 18th. It's Stackleback on Terror. I watch every one that he puts up, and now I would like to share that with y'all.
This week on Stackleback on Terror, Losing Our Sons. A new documentary examines the deadly impact of radical Islam on two American families and the broader implications for the U.S. We sit down with one of the men behind the film. Plus, the forces of Islamism are working to silence critics of jihad, and they've set their sights on the UN as the place to do it. Sam Nunberg of The Legal Project is here with the inside story. Let's go to work. And welcome to Stackleback on Terror. Well, we've all heard about Fort Hood and the Islamic terrorist massacre there. But before Fort Hood, there was Little Rock. On June 1st, 2009, an Islamic jihadist, a convert to Islam named Calvin Bledsoe, opened fire outside a U.S. Army recruiting center, killing U.S. Private Andy Long. Now, you might not have heard about it, but it was an Islamic terror attack. Happened before Fort Hood. Like Fort Hood, it was targeting the military, and now there is really a gut-wrenching, powerful new film chronicling what happened that day and the aftermath, more importantly, how the father of the jihadist and the father of the victim have come together. It's called Losing Our Sons. This is a must-see, and I'm joined now by one of the men behind the film, Charles Jacobs. Charles, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Great to have you. Thank you for making this film. It is an American tragedy, as the tagline says. Give us a bit more background, Charles. You've been so close to the families that this has affected over the past 3 years. Give us some more background about what happened that day and the aftermath.
First of all, this is an American nightmare. The Islamists are here, as you've reported. They're not only in the mosques, they're in the universities and they're in our communities. And so Carlos Bledsoe is this African-American youth raised by a Baptist family, church-going family. His dad, Melvin, salt-of-the-earth guy, has his own company, a tour bus company in Memphis. Carlos and his dad run the company together, and his dad sends his son off to Tennessee State University to get an education and better himself, to come back and maybe join the business.
The American dream.
American dream. But it turned out to be a nightmare because at Tennessee State University, there are radical Muslim imams and teachers and professors giving classes. And Awad bin Hazm is one of them.
In the Bible Belt.
In the Bible Belt. Look, this is a Bible Belt story. The Bible Belt is being inundated by Islamists.
Yes, it is.
So in these classes, Awad bin Hazm, and you can see it on the film, what is he teaching there? That homosexuals should be killed, that Muslims should not, don't have any choice about what they can pick and choose from the Quranic scriptures. It's all or nothing. There's no personal opinion. Carlos goes to some mosques, and we find out what they've been teaching at those mosques.
In Tennessee.
In Tennessee. And what they've been teaching in those mosques is anti-Christian, anti-Jewish, anti-American. And in our film, you'll see the man who Carlos took his name when he converted say Christianity is filth.
Yeah, Charles, leave it right there. We're going to take a look right now at a clip from the film, Losing Our Sons, showing some of that vicious anti-Christian rhetoric that Charles is talking about. In Tennessee, take a look.
This country will not be the richest country on earth because it is the worst country on earth.
Christians have lost much of their basics and tenets of faith. The truth of Christianity was lost at its earliest stages of infancy.
Tomorrow, they'll celebrate Christmas, assuming that Christ is a God or a son of God. There is no greater lie than this.
The Sharia is a complete way of life of Muslims. Allah is the one who commands me and tells me what to do. This requires removing from ourselves any personal opinions. One must always remember Islam is not about personal opinions. And Allah cautioned us in the Quran about an Islamic society where people follow their own version of Islam.
Under Islamic law, is it punishable by death if you are homosexual?
Yes.
Thank you.
It's punishable by death.
Do you accept or reject this particular teaching of Islam?
I don't have a choice as a Muslim to accept or reject teachings. I go with what Islam teaches.
Charles, unbelievable. I mean, stunning. And your group, Americans for Peace and Tolerance, has chronicled all of this.
Yes, and we find, by the way, that it's not just in Nashville. I mean, the sad story is that we could go into any NFL city here, and many more, and show you that people who claim to be moderate Muslims can easily be found out, just by doing some Googling, mostly, that they say one thing to your face, and then behind your back, you know, to your face it's Abrahamic brothers and religion of peace, and to your back it's kill the Jews, Christianity is theological filth, you can't become an American here, we have to take over. So people are being fooled, and I think often they want to be fooled.
And Calvin Bledsoe was steeped in this, Charles, at Tennessee State, in his area mosques in Tennessee. Then he went to Yemen. What happened there?
He told his father that they were going to take care of him in Yemen, that he was going to go and teach English for a year. Sure. Interestingly, that an English school, a language school, would require that he had a reference from a Salafi, you know, the brand of Islam that Bin Laden himself.
Al-Qaeda Islam, yes.
Right. So that's the language school needs a Salafi reference. And he goes and he spends a year there. He overstayed his visa. He gets sent back to the States, and he goes on his own personal jihad. He kills, he firebombs a rabbi's house, shoots up another rabbi's house, has lists of Jewish institutions, plans to kill Jews, winds up killing Andy Long outside of a recruitment station in Little Rock.
You know the sad thing about, many sad things about it, Charles, and one of the sad things is, I bet you a lot of our viewers who are very well informed might not have heard about this. The mainstream media, scant coverage, took the Obama administration days to issue a statement. Talk about the aftermath of this jihadi attack, and you chronicle it beautifully in the film Losing Our Sons, how the fathers of the perpetrator and the victim have come together.
Yeah. That happened because both of them, on their own, tried to tell the media what happened to their sons, and nobody would print the story. In fact, the media in Nashville, Tennessee, the Tennessean, was, you know, denying it and giving a whitewash to these imams and actually hurling accusations at anyone who had questions about it that we were racists and Islamophobes. You know,
of course.
You know the way that goes. Luckily, the congressional hearings against homegrown terrorism, investigating homegrown terrorism, came out. Peter King and Joe Lieberman held hearings, and both of the fathers went to those hearings and testified, and much of it is there.
I was there. It was powerful. I watched them testify, and Calvin Bledsoe's father, from his heart at those hearings on Capitol Hill, said, help, this is going on. People are being radicalized in this country. We need to do something about it. And he was basically called an Islamophobe by the mainstream press.
He was, and even by some of the Democratic representatives in the Congress, they were saying, well, these are interesting anecdotes, but you're not experts. And on the other hand, when Darius Long went, he asked the Congress...
And that's the victim's father.
That's the victim's father, Andy Long's father. He said, you've left my son on the battlefield. My son deserves a Purple Heart for what happened to him. And he actually won a bipartisan support for a Purple Heart, only to find out that when Congress added such a resolution to the Defense Appropriations Bill, President Obama said no. He is not going to give a Purple Heart.
So let me get this straight. A brave U.S. soldier is shot and killed by an Islamic terrorist on U.S. soil.
And says he did it for Allah. No question.
Yes.
I did it for Allah.
He did. The terrorist, Calvin Bledsoe, in his trial said, I did it for Allah, I did it for Islam. all that's clear, President Obama won't give Private Long the posthumous Purple Heart?
No.
Why?
Just the same way he won't give the Fort Hood people. I mean, the Fort Hood is
That's right.
is classified as workplace violence.
That's right.
Please.
Workplace, the Pentagon, workplace, called it workplace violence.
And this is a drive-by shooting, as though, you know, there were a drug deal that went bad.
Yes, just a random drive-by.
You'll see in our film how the administration denies and denies and denies that this has anything to do with Islam or even Islamic radicalism. They don't want to be caught having a successful attack on American soil by the Islamists, and they don't want to be caught admitting that we have a problem. And we do have a problem. And the problem is failed leadership.
And you've been talking about this, Charles. I have to tell our audience, I mean, you've been talking about this for, I don't know, 20 years at least.
Yeah.
You were one of the Paul Reveres on this Islamic terror threat, sounding the alarm. Americans for Peace and Tolerance, you guys have been doing it for years. So you know what you're talking about. You've seen this up close.
I saw it first in Sudan, where black Christians were enslaved by Muslims and nobody cared. That was 20 years ago.
Yeah, and to this day, it's still continuing.
And to this day, it's still continuing.
And you have been a watchman on the wall on that Sudan issue before anyone. God bless you and your work, my friend. And I'm going to toot the horn for this film, Losing Our Sons. The people need to know. And it's so true. And thank God we have Charles Jacobs, Americans for Peace and Tolerance, telling us what we need to do. You have to see this film. It is powerful. It's gut-wrenching. It's a wake-up call to America. So, Charles, thank you.
Thank you, Eric.
We'll do it again, my friend. Stay tuned. Much more coming up. What is Islam up to, Islamic nations, at the UN? Much more on that coming up. Stay tuned.
Okay, I'm going to skip the commercials.
No. Get your drink.
Of people to discuss Islam.
Okay, I went too far. Here we go.
And welcome back. We're joined now by Sam Nunberg. He's the director of the Legal Project, an organization dedicated to defending the right of people to discuss Islam. Imagine that. Sam, welcome.
Thank you, Eric, for having me on.
Great to have you. You guys are doing some very important work at the Legal Project. Sam, tell us a bit more about what you do. My introduction was a little bit general. Sure. It's pretty involved. Tell us about what you do.
Well, the Legal Project is an activity of the Middle East Forum, which Dr. Daniel Pipes founded in 1994. In 2007, he decided to found the Legal Project as a result of the rise of Islamist lawfare. We protect the right of researchers, politicians, and bloggers to freely discuss Islam, Islamist, and terrorist financing. Our client list runs the international globe. Some of the cases we've been involved with are Gert Wilder's case, Lars Hedegaard.
Friends of this show?
Yes.
As is Dr. Pipes?
Yes. And we actually just had a humongous victory in the Breivik trial in Norway, where we were able to protect the right of Bruce Baer and Fjordman, an anonymous blogger.
Norwegian blogger.
Yes, sir. To not have to testify in the trial. Be called as defense witnesses.
Yeah, and the Breivik trial, of course, was the madman in Norway who slaughtered, I think, 90 people. And he cited, you know, counter-jihad, I would say, bloggers as his inspiration, and they were unfairly tarred.
Yes, they were. And they were investigated not only by Interpol, but by all agencies across Europe.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that we segue into Europe there because, look, in Britain, I have friends who tell me the things you say on the Stackleback on Terror show, you could never say over here. You get thrown in jail. Sam, I don't think people realize just how nasty the speech codes are getting in Europe and the infringements on free speech when it comes to Islam. Tell us a bit more about that. And do you think it could come here to America?
Well, in a nutshell, in Europe, post-World War II, in order to fight the rise of another fascist movement, Europe started to pass hate speech laws where they would have either civil or criminal penalties against anyone that was considered to be inciting violence. Typically, in the past, they've been used against neo-Nazis. They've been used against former communist parties. But recently, they've been used as in a lawfare effort, an Islamic lawfare effort, to target critics of Islam.
I mean, peaceful critics of Islam.
That's right.
People like myself or you or Dr. Daniel Pipes who are just...
Or simply a cartoonist.
You draw a picture of Muhammad, you're
Right.
a neo-Nazi,
Yes.
the equivalent in the eyes of some in Europe, and you're thrown in jail.
You're thrown in jail.
People at home need to realize that this is going on, and I'll tell you, Sam, I can see it. The road we're going down in America, you can see it coming here.
Well, that's very interesting you say that. I mean, as you mentioned a couple weeks ago, there are already 80 Sharia courts in London. We have an English common law system. Our courts are based on English common law. Theoretically, the U.S. Supreme Court could one day rule that international law would apply from the English courts to here, and targeting or criticizing Islam, which they could view, or they could create a rationale to view as being a national security threat, would not be allowed. And that would
This
be considered,
show would be off the air, number one.
certainly. I mean, even
But
Justice
seriously.
Breyer, 2 years ago, during the Ground Zero Mosque controversy, he said that perhaps it is unconstitutional to burn the Quran. Now, mind you, the Supreme Court has already ruled it is constitutional to burn the U.S. American flag.
Right.
The
Right. Well,
United
Sam,
States.
fascinating stuff, so important. Much more to come with Sam Nunberg after the break. Don't move.
If you're an individual group or business,
He
I'll be
said
a
it's
dentist to be covered.
unconstitutional
A
to
read
burn the
762, we
Quran.
will send you a free Betty Crocker Diabetes Cookbook filled with delicious recipes.
So it's unconstitutional in the United States to burn the Quran. But it is not unconstitutional to burn the American flag. Okay? Could someone please explain to me what logic there is in that? This is America. You would think it would be unconstitutional to burn the American flag. Not unconstitutional to burn the Quran. I mean, that's just my opinion.
Call Arriva
These commercials
today.
again.
You'd be glad.
Director of just a...
It's 1994. Smile your way.
Okay, here we go.
And welcome back. We're talking to Sam Nunberg, director of just a great organization called The Legal Project, which is doing such important work. Sam, when we left off, we were talking about how these opponents of free speech, in my opinion, are really clamping down on people who are critical of radical Islam, of jihad,
Right.
of creeping Sharia, topics we discuss on the show. Who are some of the most notorious culprits who are doing this, who are trying to shut down free speech about Islam?
Well, domestically, our immediate threats are CARE, the Council of American Islamic Relations, and ISNA, both Muslim Brotherhood front groups.
ISNA, the Islamic Society of North America.
Right.
The whole acronym, the whole alphabet soup of Muslim
Yes,
Brotherhood front
but
groups.
50 state chapters. They run all across America, including Alaska and Hawaii. And they use this canard, this idea called Islamophobia. And that's a concept taken from the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. And what it says is any criticism of Islam is Islamophobic and is not fair and is racism. And is one of the civil rights...
Although Islam is not a race, but that's another story.
Right. And then they try to make it into a civil rights issue. Because, you know, that's a big political wedge.
And that's the best way to shut down conversation, right? Call someone a racist, Islamophobe, homophobe, bigot, and boom, the conversation usually ends. But not at the Legal Project.
No, certainly not. We believe that you are allowed to say anything you want. Anything. First Amendment is your protection. And also Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Article 19, which gives freedom of expression. We do not see any reason why the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, formerly the Organization of Islamic Conference, should be working with the assistance of the Obama administration.
This Organization of Islamic Cooperation, also known as the OIC, people at home need to know, very, very influential organization at the UN.
Right.
I believe some 57 Muslim nations have basically combined into one entity. They call themselves the OIC. Tell us a bit more about what they do.
Well, their 1992 charter calls to combat the defamation of Islam, calls to start an international dialogue. So what they did was, starting in 1999, they started producing resolutions called to combat defamation of Islam. That was the original one. Then they changed it to defamation of religions. 2007, it got a record high support of 111 yes votes. When Barack Obama came into office, he said that he wanted to work with the Organization of Islamic Conference to come to some international compromise on the resolutions. He gave his famous speech in Cairo, where he said that he views his job as President of the United States to combat any negative stereotypes of Islam anywhere in the world. Not only in America, anywhere in the world.
That's a new duty apparently added to the U.S. president. But
yeah, I mean, the founding fathers, that's what they were very concerned about.
Yes, sir.
And what happened was that because they realized the European countries that are being highly targeted by the Organization of Islamic Conference because of the growing Islamic population in those countries, they were able to see that Barack Obama's administration was unable to compromise on these resolutions and ended up losing support. So it went from 111 votes in 2007 to a record low in 2010, 79 votes in the General Assembly. And it could have all been dead. And Barack Obama even voted against it at the UN, as UN chair. And he criticized the Organization of Islamic Cooperation.
How prevalent is the Muslim Brotherhood line of thinking in this organization, the OIC, that we're talking about?
Well, like you said, it's 57 states. And they are highly controlled by three major countries: Egypt, Pakistan, and Saudi Arabia. Those are the ones that generally produce these resolutions. They will introduce them into bodies.
Not a comforting thought.
Right. So Egypt was initially, and when I worked at the UN as a UN delegate, I would see that Egypt was the one really trying to get all countries to cooperate on this, but also making a point that this was to combat defamation of Islam. They would only cite those examples.
Hillary Clinton, our Secretary of State, met with representatives of the OIC recently, right? What went down there?
They started the Istanbul process, which was announced in Istanbul, Turkey. Okay. What it did was to implement a new resolution that was pushed and voted by the Obama administration to come to some international framework to combat defamation of religions. But here's the issue. The State Department's closed-door meeting last December had representatives from Homeland Security, from the FBI, and we can presume from the CIA, telling representatives from the Organization of Islamic Conference, Saudi Arabia, and Pakistan how they combat terror in our countries. They're being held, through the Obama administration, accountable to the international governmental agency. So,
it's the fox guarding the hen house, the epitome of it, Sam. Sam, hang out for another minute. We're going to wrap up with you after the break. Sam Nunberg, stay tuned.
Yeah, I'm going to skip the commercials again.
John helped make term life insurance.
If you have diabetes, here to use and covered. Arriva, you don't have to prick your finger.
Her diabetes cookbook filled with delicious.
We're wrapping up here with Sam Nunberg, director of the Legal Project. Sam, people at home are probably listening to this, and probably it's frightening, it's maddening, they're angry. What can we do about this?
Well, the good news is we can do a lot about it, and we can win. We can beat this. What we first need to do is reverse the Obama administration's policy and leave the UN Human Rights Council. Because once we join councils like that, we vote for these international resolutions, which could become international legal norms and eventually come over into our own courts.
And the Obama administration got us onto that human rights.
Right, they reversed.
At the UN.
Yes, they reversed the Bush administration, and they have to re-up their membership in October. So that could be a political issue for the election. And I think what we also need to do is just be virulent. And, you know, we're on the right. But this is an issue, First Amendment, free speech, freedom of expression, freedom of religion, that I think all groups can support. And maybe we need to reach out to some of our, find some allies on the left.
Yeah. We're waiting. We're here.
Right.
Come on, guys.
Right.
Sam Nunberg, thank you so much.
Thank you, Eric, for
having me on. It was great having you. And I think at the end of the day, this all boils down to, in a lot of ways, a sovereignty issue, U.S. sovereignty as well. Exactly. So, Sam, the Legal Project, check it out. And until next time, from Stakelbeck on Terror, take care, and God bless.
Okay. Now, the whole thing with the whole thing in Tennessee. Okay, that's scary. I mean, that's only like what is it? A state, 2 states away from where I live now. And if that's going on there, because I know we have mosques here. And for my own protection, I'm not going to disclose where he is. But, I mean, that's something that we should think about, because, I mean, this was a boy who was raised as a Christian, Baptist. And then he goes off to college and he gets corrupted by the Islamists and goes away to Yemen to learn only the Lord knows what. And then he comes back and just kills us people. That's kill us all. In debate, I think it's complete crap that soldier didn't get a Purple Heart. If the Fort Hood people didn't get a Purple Heart. I mean, it was a straight up terrorist attack. That's something that they should have got. Hands down, no questions asked, should have been handed to their families. And as far as the rest of it, I'm Christian. I'm Christian. I believe Jesus Christ on the cross for our sins. He was the Son of God, sent down to save us with his, washed in the blood of the Lamb. Is what I am. It's what true Christians are. Washed in the blood of the Lamb. We've been saved. We know. It's not just we believe. We know that Jesus Christ was the Son of God, sent down to die on the cross for our sins. Okay. So I'm a Christian. So no, I don't believe in Islam. I'm not Muslim. I don't believe in it. I think it is nothing but a hate religion. And, that's my thing. And people can call me Islamophobic all they want. Number one, a phobia is a fear. Okay, I don't fear Islam. They can come shoot me up, cut my head off, I don't care. Because I know when they do, I know where I'll be going. I'll be going home. But that doesn't, I'm not afraid of them. And phobia is a fear. So for them to call people who don't believe in Islam, who are against it, Islamophobic, like I put on my Facebook page today, before people use big words, they need to look up the actual meaning of them. Because phobia is a fear. Not liking something is not fear. It's an opinion. It is my right as a United States of America citizen. It is my right to state my opinion. Free speech in the Constitution. Look it up. I think that there's something going on with our government, that they're teamed up with these terrorists, because that's what Islamists are. They are terrorists. They are against Christians. They are against America. They are against Jews. And in any given opportunity, they kill them off. As many as they can till they're caught, or if it's a suicide mission, as many as they can, in that one time. They don't care whether it's children. They don't care whether it's women, women, young children, teenagers, babies, pregnant women. It doesn't matter. Anybody who is not like them, they think that they should die. Homosexual people, they're not God. It's not their place to judge anybody. It says in the Bible, thou shalt not judge lest ye be judged yourself. The only person who has the right to judge somebody is God. God is the only judge and executioner. Period. Not a bunch of terrorists, not a bunch of Islamists who claim they're doing it for God. And it's like he said on there, they will look at you in your face and tell you one thing, oh, it's a religion of peace and blah, 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 when in fact it's not. When in fact they go home or they go back to their little meetings and their little get-togethers and they plan on how many Christians they can kill, how many Americans they can kill, how many Jews they can kill. And the way they act with it makes you wonder, who has the phobia? Us or them? Just something else for you guys to think about. Hope you enjoyed it. And don't forget, subscribe.